of Rage. And the subtitle is Obama Derangement Syndrome Grips Conservative Media Once Again. And I'll just read the first paragraph to kind of tease you about it, and then you should go to Media Matters and read this. Again, it's called Summer of Rage. In recent weeks, conservative media have been consumed by Obama derangement syndrome, accusing President Obama of being insane, of colluding with Russian spies, of trying to create a civil war and implement one world government, among other things, while also claiming that his administration is trying to control everything under the sun, including the internet and inexplicably your toilet. And the article goes on to talk about how anti-government speech has been ratcheted up, the accusation that Obama is trying to create a civil war, as well as this crazy Russian spy thing. It's actually Rush Limbaugh saying something to the effect of, "Why do they have to spy on us? Obama will tell them anything they want to know." And, of course, some things about the Gulf disaster, which is certainly everybody's fault. And I blame Obama, the Obama administration, as much as everyone else involved in this. But it's a good piece of research. Media Matters for America, again, the name of the piece, Summer of Rage, Obama Derangement Syndrome Grips Conservative Media Once Again. So now, in just a moment here, I'll be joined by Seth Pinto Ellsworth, but I wanted to let everybody know our chat room is open, as well as our phone lines at 347-327-9615. Call us up if you want to chat, if you want to talk about conspiracies, or talk about, well, pretty much conspiracies tonight, since that's what we're going to talk about. This is something that's interesting to me, and I know is interesting to Seth, who is an avid reader on conspiracy theories. And so, Pinto, welcome once again to the chamber.
Hello, Matthew.
And tonight you join us from lovely Denver, Colorado, in a lovely suite that your work put up for you.
That's correct.
And
it's wonderful. They allow me to smoke in this room.
And where do you usually work from? I mean, you know, you seem to enjoy the good life. Anyway, I'm being ironic. Before we talk about, and our teaser has been that this has been Lincoln Conspiracy Night. This will be Lincoln Conspiracy Night. But before we talk about that, I understand that you had some other zinger that you just wanted to throw in.
Yeah. Well, we all know the every year Nathan's has a famous hot dog eating contest on Coney Island.
Mm-hmm.
And that event.
No, we don't all know that, but
well, we should all know that because it's a great event. They're the ones that coined the term reversal of fortune for puking.
Okay.
Anyway, this year, the reigning champion is probably not going to show up. That's Kobayashi. He had some contract disputes. But anyway, so every year before the famous Nathan's hot dog eating contest, they do many qualifiers. You have to qualify much like you would qualify at any sporting event. And at one of these qualifiers, there was a man named Crazy Legs Conti. He has appeared in the hot dog eating contest before. This year, at one of the qualifiers, there are allegations that he cheated at his hot dog eating.
In what way?
Well, if you look at the video, and I sent you a link to the video so you can post it in the chat room.
Oh, okay.
There's actually a site on it. He not only hid some of the food in his water cup, and if you haven't watched a hot dog eating competition before, they all have many, many water cups. What they usually use these for, not only to wash the hot dogs down, but to also dip the buns in to make them softer, to make them able to be forced down the throat more easily.
I see.
So in the video, you can see him possibly dumping the hot dog buns and some hot dog material from his mouth into the cup to be saved later. There are also instances in the video where you can see him dumping it under the table. Also, when he takes his glove off at the end, he hides them in the glove and puts it away. Now, you know, this is kind of silly. It's a hot dog eating contest, but the Nathan's hot dog eating contest does come with a significant prize. So, I believe it's somewhere in the range of $1 million or something like that. I don't know. Plus, there are sponsorships.
You can't cheat. It's a game.
And there are also, big sponsorships available of all things for these contests. Well, I encourage everybody to watch the video because it's kind of pretty clear that he did cheat. Anyway, here is the statement from the Major League Eating Board, the IFOCE, the International Federation something something eating. I don't know what that stands for. Anyway, here is the statement from the president of Major League Eating. Major League Eating takes allegations of dirty play very seriously, and we are always looking for ways to improve the officiating at our competitions. While the video that's circling is perhaps not as professional as the video showing England's second goal against Germany, I applaud the passion of our fans and am pleased that the videographer submitted his footage to MLE headquarters. The officials at this particular qualifier reviewed Crazy Legs Conti's eating area and determined that deductions should be made for detritus, I believe is the word. I'm not up on my eating competition terminology. After the deduction, Conti's total was still enough to win the event. The ruling stands and Conti will compete in Coney Island on July 4th. In the meantime, MLE is seriously considering the adoption of spray zone technology.
And that is to be able to monitor how much food goes into their mouths, or to...
I suppose. There are some strange things about judging these eating competitions, like if someone suffers a reversal of fortune, they either have to eat it again for it to count, or the judges determine how many hot dogs they actually threw up, or crab cakes, or whatever they're eating. Also, obviously, debris doesn't count, so there can be deductions for debris that doesn't make it into the mouth.
I see.
But it sounds like Major League Eating is kind of rolling over on this one and still crowning Crazy Legs the champion.
That does seem really unusual to me, particularly, given their frank admission that cheating was involved.
The frank admission, right?
I wasn't even aware that I said that. That's great. What was interesting to me was that it seems like this is as this is becoming more of a media event, then it is beginning to sort of behave like one. And it sounded to me like a sort of a combination of Tour de France and WWE.
Plus a little Major League Baseball in there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly. Well, and now it sounds as if everyone on the Tour de France is beefed up on something or other. And the last thing they found was that someone might have been using a machine. Did you hear about that?
The electric motor inside the inside the gearbox or whatever. I don't know how bikes work either. But yeah,
unbelievable.
I'm all for cheating in sports, by the way.
Well, there was a sketch, I believe, on Saturday Night Live, Drug Olympics, where the athletes had to, dope up, and in one instance, a weightlifter was extremely confident, overconfident in his abilities, and so he ended up ripping both of his arms off.
And really, there's only one drug that I can think of that would be helpful in an eating competition.
Possibly, yeah. I think I may know the drug that you're talking about.
And I mean, that seems to be easier to do that than to throw your food on the floor.
Well, sure. I don't know that it really works as well as is often claimed. But before, well, okay. Two things I want to ask you or say about Abraham Lincoln before we get into the specifics of some of these conspiracies. It's really old school too, which I like. It's sort of it's sort of an icon of conspiracy theories in America because Lincoln was the first president to be assassinated. And first of all, as I mentioned to you earlier today, what makes this unique is that it really was a conspiracy. And I guess any major crime is probably going to be a conspiracy at some level. But this one has all of the elements that make it kind of a sexy historical conspiracy. There's political intrigue. There's political hatred. There's the fact that this was John Wilkes Booth, who was a fairly famous man. Certainly the Robert Downey Jr. kind of his time. And on top of that, well, there's a conspiracy about Lincoln that I wanted to mention that had nothing to do with his assassination, but I may just mention it if you don't, I guess. Not really a conspiracy, but there's an alternative theory about Lincoln that's interesting, although not involving an assassination or a conspiracy, for that matter. So I guess it's pretty off topic. But that said, explain first of all the main conspiracy theory, the sort of mother of all conspiracy theories with Lincoln. Yeah, and I guess whatever else you think is important.
I mean, the assassination itself seems pretty easy. I mean, Lincoln was, in some circles, a very hated man. He was very loved. He was very politically contentious,
sure,
especially after the end of the Civil War. I mean, that's all very clear. And what's very clear is that there were probably
this was just a few days after the end of the Civil War, right? The end, or at least a few days after the last surrender.
Right.
After General Lee's surrender.
Right. And, I mean, it's pretty clear that 8 or 10 people kind of got together to make this happen, right? That, and that John Wilkes Booth and 8 other people were involved. I mean, they were all actually tried and convicted of conspiracy or a couple lesser charges. And obviously, John Wilkes Booth, pretty clear that he actually assassinated the president at Ford's Theater.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
it's a pretty elaborate conspiracy.
Right. I mean, some of the easy conspiracy theories that are kind of actually pretty obvious if you think about it are that it was a Confederate plot to take out the president. Pretty easy sounding. I mean, that's clearly something that probably has some elements of truth in it, if not completely true. One of the others that's kind of related to the Confederacy is that it was a kidnapping plot. First of all, before the war ended, they got together to kidnap him and hold him hostage until the North surrendered, which I seriously doubt that would have happened anyway. But then, unfortunately for the South, the war ended, and so they had to do something else with their plans, which was, I suppose, murder him.
So we're not sure whether that was actually the intent, because I mean, at one point I remember reading in one of my father has tons of books on Lincoln that he left to me, and one of them about the assassination. It seemed like some of the characters involved did think that they were kidnapping him.
Well, right, and there was a kidnapping. I mean, it was very clear that there was a kidnapping plot and his conspirators. This date is important. March 17th, 1865. Lincoln was attending a different play at a military hospital called Stillwater's Run Deep, and so Booth got together to be ready for that. Unfortunately, for the Booth conspirators and Booth, Lincoln didn't go to that play. He actually went to a different military cemetery, a different military event, and then presented the governor of Indiana with some awards and that the Union had won and some battle flags. What's ironic is that Booth was living at the hotel where this award was presented in Indiana at the time. I don't think that Booth knew he was going to be there. I mean, obviously news didn't travel as fast back then. So Booth went to the military hospital with his conspirators ready to kidnap Lincoln. Unfortunately, Lincoln never showed up and was actually at the hotel that Booth was living in. And so their paths kind of crossed there, and they didn't get it. And so,
you know what I want to say when I hear that?
What's
wah,
that?
wah, wah.
Right, the Benny Hill theme was playing.
He was back at the hotel the whole time. Comedy, yeah, sure.
John Wilkes Booth was practicing. He was practicing his line outside the military hospital, and then he looked inside, and all he saw was injured war veterans or something. I'm not really sure what happened. And then after that, they all attended a speech at the White House by Lincoln that was about voting rights for blacks, and Booth then formulated his plot to kill the president. Now, there are a couple different theories that branch out from here. One of them was that the vice president was involved in the assassination plot, kind of to take back some of the power because the forces of the South were kind of convincing Johnson that he should be part of the plot. This was actually investigated by Congress at the time. They found no evidence of wrongdoing. Here's one of the reasons why. Booth went to visit Johnson, and they actually found that they probably wanted to kill Johnson the same day that they killed Lincoln.
Sure. Yeah, as well as Secretary Seward.
Unfortunately for Booth, he had bad luck at finding presidents at hotels and things because Johnson wasn't there either.
Okay, so he went to see Johnson, but he never actually talked to him, or had they ever talked?
He did not talk to him. Johnson was not at the hotel like he was supposed to be, and so Booth left him a note, which is one of the reasons why they were able to.
Sure. One of the reasons why they suspected or were able to clear the vice president.
So ends up he's shot. They convict all these people of conspiracy to commit murder, and then they hung a bunch of them. Sic semper tyrannis. All of that. Now, I read a couple of other interesting ones. Now there was this Catholic priest. His name, he was from Canada. He left the Catholic Church and became a Protestant. His name was Charles Chinnicky, I believe is how it's pronounced. I'm not up on my Canadian either. He actually wrote a book. He said that it was the Jesuits that were responsible for assassinating Abraham Lincoln.
Wow.
Because they wanted to run the Now, from all the research that I have done, there's not a lot of proof of this other than it may have been a plot by the Jesuits to kick Chinnicky out of the church, and he was unhappy about it. Lincoln defended him in a court. It was the highest profile libel suit that Lincoln had been a lawyer for. And there was all this, okay, so Chinnicky claimed that he was falsely accused by his superiors and that Abraham Lincoln came to his rescue. He also claimed that the American Civil War was a plot against the United States of America by the Vatican, and that the Vatican was behind the Confederate cause.
Wow.
And that Pope Pius IX was the one that sent out the execution order.
A very disgruntled worker.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Actually,
but is there any evidence at all?
You know, there does not seem to be a lot of evidence about this. A lot of people, from what I've read, it's a lot of anti-Catholic, anti-Jesuit blather, really. That,
yeah.
I mean, other than the fact that Abraham Lincoln had defended Chinnicky against the Catholic Church and against some people who said that he said libeled him, and that the bishops in the American Catholic Church at the time were very unhappy with the fact that Abraham Lincoln came to his defense.
I see. Okay. So you have a very light motive, but that's about it.
Right. And the fallout from this is that you're familiar with Chick tracts, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Comic book.
Jack Chick created one of his comics, his big comics, was one of Chinnicky's books, The Church of Rome, and it was his comic was called The Big Betrayal.
Oh, okay. Wow. Now that is some history I have just never heard, and you really do learn something new every time you come on the show. We learn something new, a number of things. And before we go on, we have a caller from the 805 area code. And if I got, let's see if that's working there. And hello, caller. Welcome to Shared Sacrifice.
How you guys doing tonight? I heard you were talking about John Wilkes Booth. It's Johnny Five. We talked last week. Remember Johnny Five?
Johnny Five.
Yes.
You still alive. You still alive.
You remember me, guys? Remember me? Five.
Yes, absolutely. You're not. You seem to be. Are you under a bridge or something? Are you hiding somewhere? Because you're.
I am not.
Oh.
I'm the robot who knocked the cap off the oil. Come on, man. I'm beaming.
Do you hear anything?
I don't hear anything.
Okay. Hey, Johnny Five. Johnny Five, we're gonna take you off here, and hopefully you can get a better connection, because we're getting maybe every fifth word there. I hope you're okay. Definitely don't want to put you in any danger. Because I can imagine that there's people out there looking for you. Wouldn't you imagine there's people out there looking for him?
Yeah, I think they're probably flying their chemtrails and whatnot.
And hence jamming his phone lines. Well, we will not be a tool for the jamming of Johnny Five's phone lines, but Johnny Five is indeed still alive, still kicking. Okay, so hopefully he can call back in a little while, but before he does, hopefully we can get through a little more stuff on. Oh, wait a minute. We have him one more time. Here we go, and let's see here.
Johnny?
Yeah, I'm here. How you guys doing? Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah, you're coming in much better.
That's much better. I know. It's really difficult when you're 5,000 miles, or whatever the hell it is, 5,000 feet, 5,000 miles. BP ain't gonna tell you the truth. But, you know, when you're this far behind the ocean, you know, it's really hard to get a signal out. So I apologize for the first call.
Are you coming in? So you coming in from 5,000 feet there?
Well, yeah, I told you guys last week. I'm the robot who knocks the oil caps off of things. That's how it works. You know, I'm still down there. I'm still working. I mean, they got this tropical storm, and they're like, oh, we're pulling back everybody. But that's nonsense. I'm a robot. What do I need that for? I don't got to give that up. You know, I got to keep working. That's how it works.
All right. Well, the last time we talked, we just want you to bring us up to speed, and we just have a few minutes here. But we want to bring us up to speed on there was clouds, and these clouds would contain all this oil that was being pushed inland, and sure enough, after we got through talking to you, next thing you know, Hurricane Andrew. So
I
obviously, yeah, you know what's going on here.
Well, I know what's going on with that, but I got to be honest with you. I can't tell you too much, right? I mean, if I tell you too much, you guys are going to make it public on a podcast. I mean, the reason I called tonight is you're talking about my distant cousin.
Mm-hmm. John Wilkes Booth.
Yeah, Johnny 1.
Gotcha.
They didn't call him Johnny 1 then because there was only one of them, right? But people don't realize this. He was a steam-powered robot.
Okay, hey. This is great. An exclusive. This is an exclusive.
And that's, you know, nobody's uncovered this conspiracy theory yet, but you know, they will in time, especially thanks to my information. The reason that Lincoln was bumped off was because they were trying to set up for all this, you know, these natural resource controls, and they had to do it by, getting rid of Lincoln, because Lincoln was creating this problem. You have, Civil War, and they had to be like, how are we going to get rid of this problem? You know what I mean? It was over by then, but it was more that he had already done it. He already defied the robot allegiance. So we had to bring in somebody to take care of the problem. We were like, let's go to a show.
I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling this.
Come on, man.
No.
The first natural resource we're talking about here that was important at the time was wood. Right? Wood. As a steam-powered robot, you got to get some water, you got to get some wood. Everybody knows that John Wilkes Booth was a smoker. It's because he was smoking wood. It was coming out of his fucking brains. That's how it worked.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just, cloud people, cloud robots.
Well,
I'm fine with all that.
I told you now that the alliance now is with the clouds because we got to move this data around in the cloud computing. But, before that, we didn't have no clouds. We had branches on trees. We had the tree people. You seen that Lord of the Rings movie?
Yes.
Have you seen that? You've seen that, right?
Yeah, indeed. Yes.
That J.R.R. Tolkien guy, he was on top of things. He recognized that trees could walk. Nobody knew that. Nobody knew that back then, that trees could move around and walk, and they were all trying to shut down a resource war and keep it quiet. They were like, oh, it's trees. No one will ever know. We'll just fall on people's houses. People will be like, oh, it's the weather. It ain't the weather, because then the clouds were not involved, but now they are. That's why you got your little Alex brewing in the Gulf. Because he's with us now, but back then we didn't have any contact with the clouds. Right. Now we do. Now we got the cloud contact. We're sending them data. Here's Alex. He's here to whoop ass. That's how it works.
So in light of all this, you're saying that we should revise our theories as to how Lincoln was assassinated, and Booth was a robot. Now, who was pulling the strings? Who was programming this robot?
Well, it was definitely not the Jesuits. I hear this, this Gary on the other line, this Gary Ellsworth, and he's just wrong about that. It ain't the Jesuits. It was definitely those of us in a robot community back then. It was very unsophisticated. We were like an abacus. It was like part of the reason we were at war with the trees is we needed wood beads to make us function. And so it was like, well, if we can get the trees involved and get them on our side, then we can cut them down and we can make some more abacuses. But,
So you are saying that while there was a civil war going on between the North and the breakaway South, in the mid-19th century, there was a parallel war going on between robots and trees.
I mean, I wouldn't call it a war. It was more like we needed beats. They wouldn't give them to us, so we had to get them. You know, we got to get them one way or another. And so it was kind of like if we could assassinate this president who was going to prevent us from getting more beats, then that's a good thing. You know, and so it was like we took Johnny, and then he was known as Johnny Wilkes Booth, but, you know, in our history, he's known as Johnny 1. Not Johnny 5 like me, but Johnny 1. And, you know, and we had him go out, and we took some water, and we took some wood, and we made some steam, and that powered him. He was a big steam-powered robot, and that's why everybody thinks he was a smoker, because he wasn't really a smoker. I mean, you know, robots, we can't smoke. We don't got no fucking lungs. But, you know, you send them out, and you got them working, and people confuse steam for smoke all the time. You've seen this. You've seen like a 3-year-old kid. They look at a stove as boiling water, and they're like, Daddy, it's fire. It's fire. And it's not. It's just steam. You know, it's all good.
Okay. Why, I guess, last question, why should we believe this new account, this entirely new account of history, and why, actually, no. I've got an even better question. So Booth supposedly dies in this guy's house as he's, you know, being pursued. He's in the house, and I'm sure Pinto will talk about this maybe in a few minutes, but is that really his body, or is that somebody else's body? How can you explain, if what you're saying is true, then how can there be this Booth, you know, burning to death or dying of smoke inhalation, or maybe he got shot? I can't remember what happened, but why should we believe this account? It doesn't seem to fit with the fact that he died in a house.
Well, in all reality, I mean, you can't just send some, like, you know, wood-based machine out to go kill Lincoln without somebody being like, what's going on here? So, you know, we had to find this guy, and we talked to him, and we were like, how's this going? We'll give you a couple bucks. You know, you're homeless. We're going to give you a good life. We'll give you a good ending, and here's what we're going to do. His name, in all reality, I mean, I shouldn't tell you this because it's a little too public to tell you this, but his name was Tony Bag of Donuts. And, you know, we decided, we said, Tony, listen, here's the deal. You're, you know, an Italian immigrant. We'll have you come over. You know, you come over from Italy. We'll give you some pasta. We'll give you some pasta fagioli. That's good for you. And then, you know, we just kind of gutted him. We just killed his ass. And we splintered him. You know, we stuck a couple 2x4s and a couple twigs, and, you know, I mean, when I say we, I'm talking about my ancestors, but, you know, we're all the same robot mentality, so it's kind of a royal we. But, you know, the idea was, you know, take this human being, you occupy him. You might have seen something like this. I think it was called A Terminator. This movie that James Cameron made. And, you know, I mean, people think like, oh, that's so unrealistic that couldn't have possibly happened. But, hell, it was happening in the 1800s. We were doing it then, even when we were made of wood and powered by steam. So, you know, don't be too confused.
An instantiation, Pinto, of the theory, or I guess the statement that if time travel were possible, it already would have happened.
Right. Yeah.
So I want to thank you, Johnny 5, for sharing with us this new account of the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, this steampunk account, if you will. And
I would prefer that you don't call us punks. In all reality, I mean, we are. You know, my ancestors, they were steam-powered, but by no means were they punks. We don't tolerate punks around these parts. These parts being right now 5,000 feet below the ocean, but anywhere, we don't like punks.
Wow, I have to say our switchboard is lighting up tonight. Of course, that may just be something you're doing.
No, that is not. I mean, I've been in contact with the clouds tonight, but my cloud communications have been singular with the clouds. If there's another robot out there who wants to bring some other, you know, theorem on what's going on, they could do that, but they're probably wrong. But that ain't me. I got to say, it ain't me. So, you'll take your other calls. I don't want to withhold, other people from being able to speak. But keep in mind, we're still out here. We're still working on this oil rig and making sure it's all sorts of fucked up for everybody. And we'll talk to you later.
All right. Johnny 5, thank you very much for your call and for your theory. And now we have a caller from the 914 area code. Oh, wait a minute. Looks like we may have lost that caller because they didn't want to actually be on the air, which brings us back then to Abraham Lincoln. We have 18 minutes to go now. Once again, Johnny 5 has bitten out a huge chunk from our show. But Seth Pinto, Ellsworth, go ahead.
I did want to say more about this Catholic conspiracy, though, because there was one of the conspirators. His name was John Surratt.
Right.
John Surratt, actually, he was the only one that was not captured almost immediately, and he fled to Quebec, Canada. He was hidden there by priests of the Roman Catholic Church, and they would not let him be given up. And then he went to England and stayed at the Catholic Church of the Holy Cross.
Right.
He moved through Europe and went through a bunch of at that time there were many Vatican holdouts at the time, and then someone that knew him turned him into the U.S. government. He was arrested by the papal authorities. But also managed to escape through some sort of circumstance.
But he was given sanctuary for a while, wasn't he?
Yes.
By the Catholic Church, which that is true. That's not a theory. That's that actually happened when he went overseas to escape the U.S. government.
This guy actually did get captured in Egypt. He was never convicted because even though the prosecution had 15 witnesses, some said they knew him, some said they didn't. They said they saw a man that could have been him around the area on the day of the assassination. So he never got convicted, and he lived the rest of his life as a free person.
On that subject, are there theories? Are there any theories that anyone was wrongly convicted in terms of the assassination, the actual assassination plot? Because wasn't it Mary Surratt who was the older woman who was hanged?
Yeah, and she was actually the first woman ever hanged by the U.S. government.
Mm-hmm. And she seems much more guilty by association than the rest of the crew. Her role seemed much more passive than everyone else's. And so, that may not be in conspiracy territory. That may simply be that she was a victim of circumstance.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff is not.
Now, this is interesting. I wanted to mention that President Johnson, of course, Andrew Johnson, Lincoln's successor, claims that he never saw the clemency papers for Mary Surratt, which were supposedly placed on his desk. And I mean, they issued an appeal.
Anything like my desk, and I wouldn't have found them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, exactly. Plus, Johnson did not seem like the most together guy. But the story is that someone acting under Johnson's authority denied the appeal, and she was, of course, hanged. And it was a horrible scene where she was taken to her hanging.
Five of the jurors
and later on, Johnson claims that he never saw the paperwork for it.
Well,
but back to
five of the jurors actually recommended clemency after they convicted her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But nothing ever was acted upon that. And also there is, of course, you remember the saying, "Your name is Mud."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Samuel Mudd was also one of the ones convicted. He did escape execution, but Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan both kind of gave him a pardon. I mean, they wrote letters to his grandson agreeing that his grandfather committed no crime.
Right, right. Now that's interesting. I want to get to, before we run out of time too much, I want to get to a little more about the main alternative theory, and this was put forward by a book and a movie, both called The Lincoln Conspiracy. I cannot remember the name of the author of it. It was very poorly received among the establishment Lincoln historian community, probably because it didn't have a lot of good evidence for it. But this was the theory that Secretary of State or Secretary of War Stanton plotted to kill Lincoln.
Right. I mean, a lot of what that was is they had some false documentation that Stanton, that Stanton supposedly, he made up some documentation that evidence against the conspirators and the conspirator of Booth. Also,
and it's a thesis of this book, as I understand it, that the person who died in the cabin was not John Wilkes Booth, but someone else whose initials were JWB. So I thought that was interesting.
Right. Well, I mean, he did say that Booth eventually escaped to England, and that nobody knew where he went, and that Stanton had the autopsy records and the other records of Booth's death, changed to reflect that it was actually Booth that died. The person, the Confederate double agent that actually died was James William Boyd.
Okay, and he was a Confederate double agent.
Right.
Supposedly.
And this was all part of a plot to kidnap Lincoln and to hide him away while they could bring up articles of impeachment for the Civil War and the Reconstruction plans.
And this was done by the radical Republicans. So this was allegedly done by the radical Republicans, so kind of hating Lincoln for the opposite reason. The Confederacy hated him, and as sort of punishment for prosecuting the war.
Right, and that goes back to the original kidnapping plot that some say Booth and his conspirators acted alone. If you believe the other evidence that Stanton relied on, created false documentation that this happened.
And then what about the charge that that the Confederate government was involved in this?
Well,
there was even people were even saying, and people were saying this immediately afterwards for understandable reasons, that Jefferson Davis was aware of Booth's plot.
That comes from it was a bunch of, the theory goes there's a bunch of northern bankers who lost money on cotton during the time. They speculated on cotton back then. That was one of the big crops, kind of like we speculate on oil today. And so that they got together with a bunch of Confederate leaders like Jefferson Davis and things like that to not only bring charges, they were going to kidnap him so they could bring up some charges of impeachment without the public being involved. So they could make up, so they could, his plans for reconstruction as well as the lost profits for both the South on cotton crops themselves and the speculation that went on in the markets during the time on cotton crops.
Well, probably because Reconstruction was really going to mess up the prices of cotton.
Right,
not
because obviously...
not that they weren't already messed up by the war, but sure.
Right. Cotton for, a long time was going to be, priced differently, much, much differently than it was before because the economy was, clearly moving away from a slave-based economy to...
Yeah, and being taken over by the federal government as it, during the Reconstruction process. So that's, that's definitely a motive that seems to be greater than the motive that the papacy had.
Right, that they hated his handling of one guy.
Exactly.
I would say the problem, obviously, with going back to Lincoln is it's hard to uncover old evidence like that. A lot of it was destroyed, not kept, obviously. Crime-fighting investigation techniques were a lot different back then. Forensic science was not anywhere near what it was today. It was a lot easier to hide things in the government as well because the government was the only, I couldn't go down and search the internet in my library for some evidence that might be hiding away.
I think that what the other thing that kind of makes it interesting is that it's tied to the Civil War, and there are still remnants, huge remnants of communities in America where if you talk to certain people at a certain time, they'll give you a different opinion of the assassination, and they'll basically say that Lincoln had it coming. And so there are people alive today that at least think that they can understand Booth's rage when he killed Lincoln. And so it's still a political issue in a sense, 150 years later.
Okay, and real quick, while we still have some time left, I wanted to go over one other interesting thing that happened. It actually happened after the assassination. It's the conspiracy to kidnap Lincoln's body.
Okay, yes, the conspiracy to kidnap Lincoln's body.
Okay, so this happened at least twice, run by the same people. Now, this was related to counterfeiters. Now, there was a giant counterfeiting ring going on. Obviously, it was a lot easier to counterfeit money back then because it was printed on just plain paper. If you had some equipment, you had some capital to start, you get a good engraver, you could counterfeit money. Well, this person named Ben Boyd, one of the greatest counterfeiters of the time, was put in prison. So his little gang, then run by a guy named Terrence Mullins, they were running out of money. Their engraver was in prison, so they had no way to make capital because they, couldn't get jobs or something. I don't really know why they didn't just, start getting a job or whatever. But, and so in 1876, they decided to kidnap the body of Lincoln and bury him in the sand of Indiana, the rolling sands of Indiana, and hold him hostage for some money. Unfortunately, they got drunk at a bar one night and said too many things to too many people, and they kind of got run out of Springfield at the time. Mullins was not to be deterred, though, and he went and got together another group of people to kidnap the body. Kind of the exact same point, right? And he worked, really hard to get a group of people together, a group of shady people that wanted some money, and they wanted two things: $200,000 and the release of their engraver. And so they got together a bunch of people. The Secret Service was also hanging out in Chicago at the time. So they convinced this guy named, his name was Louis Swagles. He was actually an agent of the Secret Service. He was assigned to make sure that Mullins was under surveillance and things like that. Mullins and the group of people convinced Schlegel to help them in the plot. Schlegel was obviously working undercover. They actually broke into the tomb. They broke into the tomb. They moved the coffin just a little bit, and Schlegel then alerted the other people. It was kind of another Benny Hill scene with the federal agents shooting at each other.
Wow.
Instead of at the counterfeiters. The counterfeiters actually got away. A couple of them were caught. A couple of them were let go because there were no evidence against them. But the problem was that this caused Lincoln's body to go on a kind of a tour of a never a permanent home for a while because they were afraid that he was going to be kidnapped again. When they finally put him in his final resting place, which is the Lincoln Memorial, I believe, in Illinois, they spent probably a good 6 weeks guarding the body, looking at it every day to make sure that it actually was Lincoln.
Wow.
They described him as smelly and moldy when they open the casket. But then this is kind of interesting what they did. They built a steel cage around the coffin and cemented over the steel cage to make sure his body was never stolen again.
Wow, and so the subsequent conspiracy to kidnap Lincoln's body after the conspiracy to kill him, there's really been conspiracies surrounding this guy since the assassination. We haven't even talked about the eerie parallels between the Kennedy assassination and the Lincoln assassination, nor have we talked about the off-topic theory that I was going to talk about, which we don't have time to talk about, but that's okay. And that is the sexuality of Abraham Lincoln. There have been several scholars and historians who have now come forward and claimed that Lincoln was at least bisexual or perhaps gay. And, of course, those people have also been treated with contempt by what you might call the Abraham Lincoln establishment. So as we...
Abrahams.
I was going to say... I was going to say the Abramites. I was going to say the Gabraham Lincoln theory, but I wasn't. But that's not wholly original. But anyway, so with just a minute left, I want to thank you, Pinto, for sharing the knowledge of the Abraham Lincoln conspiracy theories with us. Hope to talk to you next week, and also want to thank Johnny Five. For his brief and less than completely convincing contribution to the Abraham Lincoln discussion.
And I'd like to say we wouldn't be anywhere without Johnny One.
That's true. That's true. Because without Johnny One, how can there be a Johnny Five? This is Matt saying listen again tomorrow night, and of course on Saturday afternoon. 12 to 2 p.m. for Shared Sacrifice Weekend, and this is Shared Sacrifice signing off.